My thanks to Yedidi HaRav Reb Shlomo Talmid Chacham Muflig, and any sugya that you might wish to speak on, he's there and he's Aktashia, and it's a zechus to be part of your very special program. First and foremost, I salute all those wonderful participants who, with a lot of effort in difficult times, understand that the important thing that we can do at this stage is to sit and learn. Says the Chofetz Chaim, the shame, the person's name, will be written on the stones that he places on the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash is only missing a few stones, some big ones, some small ones. And each and every one of you, with your learning, places a stone on the wall of the Beis HaMikdash. And we get a little bit closer to Mashiach coming. Says the Chofetz Chaim, the stone is not only put there, but it's engraved with your name. And your name will be there for nitzchias, for posterity, forever. People will see this is the stone which Yankel put there, which Shmerel put there. And the Gula came in his zechus. The Alter Sabatka says, Yofa Shoah Achas of Torah, Mitzvahs, and Olam Hazeh, Mikol Chaye Olam Haba. Every black Gemara, anytime a person's zoicha to learn, is Yofa Mikol Chaye Olam Haba. Kavachoyma, if the officer of Nosson says, when you learn Mitoch Tzar, when things are difficult, when it's hard to concentrate, when it's not easy to apply yourself, when you've got a lot in your head, each extra madrega of difficulty, says the officer of Nosson, multiplies the schar by 100. You get a much bigger stone in the Beis HaMikdash. And Rabbi Desta says that each extra level of difficulty in the learning multiplies it by another 100. Not double, but another 100. So there's an incredible amount of schar being given out by Kadosh Baruch Hu to those who chaparayim and understand that now is the time that we can be zeicha. Sheyibona Beis HaMikdash b'mheira b'yomeinu. Not only in our days, says the Rav Shitzer, b'yomeinu, with our days, with that which we apply ourselves to, that which we do in our days, and we give of our time and our effort. Sheyibona Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash will be built with our days, which the days and the hours and the effort of each and every one of you, and the name is inscribed. At the same time, I take the opportunity to, in my own name and in the name of all the participants, to say a heartfelt yeshkoyach to those great gentlemen whom we respect so much in the Torah projects of the Agudas Yisrael, who have never missed an opportunity for noch hashia, and another opportunity, shtuk people, help people, encourage people, a little bit more learning, noch epis lernen. These people, schus harabim tolei bahem, very unique people, whom, however much we respect them, we don't really fathom how much they've done for all of Klal Yisrael. In Shir Shirim, Shlomo Melech says, "In Yitain Ishes called Hoin Beisoi Ba'avo Boys Yovuzuloi." Says Reb Shlomo Kabetz in his Pirish Ayeles Ahovim. Yidden have to do mitzvahs, and Yidden have to keep all the Torah and have good midas and do lots of incredible things. But none of that compares to the zchus of learning Torah. Im Yitain Ish es Kol Hoin Beisoi. If a person will keep every one of the Tariq mitzvahs, ba'avo, and he'll do so ba'avo, with cheshek, and with hana, and l'shem shemayim. But if he doesn't learn Torah, boys yavuzuloi. In shemayim, they don't respect such a person. You don't get the same schar. But if you learn Torah, then every word of Torah, and every shia of Torah, and every extra toisus that we learn is Mechabda achabeid, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechabed you for your learning, and for your mitzvahs, and for your Torah, and for your tzedakah, and for your midas tovas. Everything is worth so much more when we learn Torah. And I want to add something from this week's parasha for all of you. This week is parasha Shlach Lecha. And in Shlach Lecha, in the Haftarah, Yeshua sends his two meraglim to Eretz Yisrael. And they come across Rochav. And she asks, Hishavu li, make a shvua, Shasisi chesed, that I did with you a chesed. And in that zechus, you won't kill me. And they make a shvua that not us, nor anyone in the entire Klal Yisrael will lay as much as a finger on Rochav, because she did a chesed to them. Frek the Alter from Kallah in Chochma Musa. If she did a toiva to them, then she deserves a toiva from them. How can they get up there in the name of the entire Klal Yisrael and say that the entire Klal Yisrael undertakes not to harm Rochav? She's not deserving of this. They're not able to speak in their name. Says the Alter from Kallah. From here we see a Yesod. Ha'oise chesed. If you do a chesed with one or two people, with a small group of people, but these people represent Klal Yisrael, then you've done a toiva to the entire Klal Yisrael. And you're entitled to demand that you will get a toiva from every single individual in the whole of Klal Yisrael. And this Yisod, the Medrash learns that Yisroi did a toiva for Moshe Rabbeinu, and because Moshe Rabbeinu acts on behalf of Klal Yisrael, it's considered to be, says the Pasuk in Shmuel, that Yisroi did a toiva with the whole of Klal Yisrael. And the same goes for Rochav. Hayois, that Yeshua and Kalev and Pinchas represent Klal Yisrael, and they're working on behalf of Klal Yisrael. If you do a toiva for them, you've done a toiva for the entire Klal Yisrael. I don't need to add anything more by Rabbi Isai. These very special friends who are working for Klal Yisrael, who are representative of Klal Yisrael, of the needs of Klal Yisrael, and whatever the needs of Klal Yisrael are, they understand that the Torah projects of Agudas Yisrael comes to the rescue to help us. Whatever the needs of Klal Yisrael are, these people represent Klal Yisrael, and they deserve that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bench them. Because they represent Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should pay each one of those special people. May oitzorai atoiv ki asisem chesed im kol Yisrael. Meir Rabbi Isai. We move from Hakaras atoiv to people. Chazal tell us in the Medrash in Shemois, ha'oise makir, somebody who's makir toiva to a person who does toivas to him, comes to be makir toiva to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The more we appreciate and we understand what people do for us, the more we will appreciate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'chasodav ha'gdolim, and we've learned in the last kufa to appreciate kol ha'neshama ta'alil ka al kol neshima u'neshima. Every breath, we appreciate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us. Says the Alshich, why is it that every breath needs a special, separate, individual Hakaras HaTov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Says the Alshich, because the Nishmas Chaim of a person is a Chelek Elikam Imal. It doesn't belong in this world. The Guf belongs in this world. The Neshama Shenosato Bi really comes from the Olam HaElyon. And it wants at all times to return to the Olam HaElyon. If not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will consciously force the neshama to stay in the person, the natural default of the neshama of a yid will be to fly up to Shamayim. Kol neshima u neshima. to Halil Ko, you have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he forces that neshama to stay part of this worldly guf that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. Says the Alshich, that's the pshat in the Pasuk in Tehillim Samach Tes. Dovka nafshi acharecha. My nefesh, my neshama, really wishes to cleave, to be stuck acharecha to HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Bi tomcha yaminecha. The fact that the neshama stays within me is a tomcha yaminecha, is a constant input from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the neshama should stay with us. As we say, every time we say Hashayotza, umafli la'asos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a wonderful world, says the Torah. What's so incredible and wonderful about the world? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu forces together the guf and the neshama. They don't belong together. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who forces them to stay together and create the wonderful human being and give him the opportunity of Torah mitzvahs. Bi tamcha yeminecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with us a tov every single day, and therefore we have the zechus to learn together Meseches Brachas and Hilchas Birchas Hanenin and Birchas Hashvach, brachas in which we appreciate that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Melech HaOlam in so many different ways. I'll call Neshima Neshima, and we have the zechus in the zechus of some special people. It was zechus to learn together the dinim mit an iyun, innovating from inside the sugya with avona, a good avona. I saw this week, and that's the last thing before we learn Mitz Hashem, Halacha and Lomdus. The Rambam Kiyodua went through the entire Shas, and he took out the dinim, and he placed them together in an incredibly Masuridic way. Take any Peirik in the Rambam, and one halacha comes from a Gemara in Brachas, and the next halacha comes from a Gemara in Eruvin, and the third halacha comes from somewhere else. It took the Kesef Mishnah many, many years to write the Mekayros, the sources of each halacha in the Rambam. But the Rambam set out, as he writes in his Akdama, to give us a sefer which is easy to understand, where every halacha is placed in exactly the right place. The Rambam writes in his letters, Soif Yomov, and the Rambam writes, Taka, it's a Moiridik Chibur, the Mishnah Torah of the Rambam. Oba, says the Rambam, I have a shtikla chalishes adas. People learn my sefer, the Rambam, but they don't know the Mekayros. So you have all the halachas, but if you don't learn things with the Mekayros, and you can't look it up where it comes from, you're never going to understand things properly. The Rambam bemoans the fact that although I had good reasons for not placing the sources for every halacha, nevertheless there would have been a maila, an additional advantage, if people would know the sources. Others say that Avraham and Rambam set out to do this job, to place on every halacha the source of the Rambam. L'maisa is, we don't have that chibur of Avraham and Rambam. It took many years, hundreds of years, till the Kesef Mishnah wrote his sefer, and afterwards the Vilna Gaon on the Shulchan Aruch, that we finally have sources for every din in the Rambam. This is the opportunity that we have to learn the halachas, and to learn them well, and to learn them from the Gemara through the Shulchan Aruch into the Achronim, and in this way be zocheh to understand things properly. My Rabbi said, I was asked to say a shia on the brachas of she'asa lineis b'mokim hazeh. A yid finds himself in a situation, a nes happened to him. He was in a difficult situation, a situation that doesn't happen all the time. He makes a bracha. She'asa lineis b'mokim hazeh. He goes back to that place, he makes a bracha. She'asa lineis b'mokim hazeh. The Moshe writes in Yeridei Chelik Daled, he discusses the Nisimin and Tebi. If a person was saved b'derech Nesin and Tebi, the danger was extremely dangerous, not a regular situation. the nisim that took place there, that they were saved. This is true example. Some people are in a situation where their entire body was in danger and they had an operation, and the operation was dangerous, complicated, and they were saved with derech nes. That could also qualify for she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh. Many other situations, she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh. In Siman Reish Yud Ches, the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Chayei Adam. Chayei Adam says a chiddush. Says the Chayei Adam, to be able to make the bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh, you need a situation that the danger you were in was unusual. Hashem placed you in terrible danger, unusual danger. Says the Nishmas Adam, even if you were saved, it wasn't a miraculous way that you were saved. It was a miderech hateva. Nevertheless, says the Chayei Adam, you need to make a bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh. And he writes there explicitly, his own daughter was in a situation which was extremely dangerous, but she was saved through no major miracle. And I told her that she needs to say the bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh every time she comes back to this place, if 30 days elapsed and she hasn't been to that place. For her, for her children, for her grandchildren, for all the generations. That's what the Chayei Adam writes in Klal Samachay. The Shara Tzion argues with him. The Mishnah Berurah says no. The bracha she'aseh nes doesn't mean that was in extremely difficult danger. That's not enough. You need to be in a situation which is extremely dangerous, and you were saved with derech nes. If there was something miraculous, something unusual about the way you were saved, then you say the bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh. That's the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah. Rabbi Yaakov Emden Meir writes, like the Chayei Adam, HaRav Osnin, Tshuva, and Shevet Levi, paskins like them, that you, even if there's no nes in that tzala, you still make the bracha. Many others paskin like the Mishnah Berurah, a big machlokes. If it's relevant halacha l'maisa, you're going to ask a Rav. But let's understand, firstly, the nekuda of the machlokes. The nekuda of the machlokes seems to be a very poshta thing. How do we understand this bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh? In a nes, the Achronim explained to us by Chanukah that there's two parts that constitute a nes. Kriyas Yamsuf. Two incredible things in Kriyas Yamsuf. One was a demonstration of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's incredible power. Gevuros Hashem. We come to our korah of how mighty and incredible HaKadosh Baruch Hu's koyach is. And another point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did a gewaltige tova with Klal Yisrael. We were in danger. We were inside the Yamsuf. We had the Mitzrayim running after us, and we were saved. Chayei Adam understands that when Chazal made the bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh, this is a birchas haydah. I was in danger, mortal danger, and I was saved from the danger. I have to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for saving me. That's the bracha. How you were saved is irrelevant. You were in danger. The Mishnah Berurah understands nish to say. The bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh is a bracha on gevuros Hashem. It's a birchas hashvach, not a idah. It's a shvach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is able to make such incredible, miraculous deeds. Says the Mishnah Berurah, there should be an actual nes that should happen. That's the chayei of the machlokes. Now let's delve a little bit further. Says the Chayei Adam, in the Nishmas Adam at the bottom, he has kamarayas to his shitta, that if you were saved, even if there wasn't b'derech nes that you were saved, you're still going to make a bracha she'aseh nes b'mokem hazeh. What is right? Very interesting. Says the Chayei Adam. Yosef and his brothers and a whole load of other people went together to take Yaakov Avinu to bury him in Eretz Yisrael. On the way down, they came back down to Mitzrayim, and as they arrive in Mitzrayim, the brothers get worried that Yosef HaTzadik hates us. Lu yistamenu Yosef. Perhaps Yosef is going to hate us. And they send him a message. Please be forgiving. Understand we didn't mean it. A whole story. Says the Medrash. What happened? On the way down to Mitzrayim, Yosef HaTzadik went off from the road and he went to the boir where his brothers had put him into the boir. If you put into a boir, it's dangerous. It's extremely hot. You're left to die. There's no food, no water. It's a dangerous situation. Says the HaRav, why did Yosef go to that boir? It would seem, why does the Medrash say, Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, that Yosef went to the boir? True, his brothers, because of that, were scared that he was all angry with them. But why did Rabbi Yitzchak say that Yosef went to the boir? Says the HaRav, L'chayra, because he wanted to make the bracha. Okay. Says the HaRav, a boir is Emerson extremely dangerous. It's boiling hot. There's no food, no water. You're going to die. How was Yosef saved? Very simple. Orches Ishmaelim comes by, and they pull him out of the boil. There was no ness in the way he was saved, but he was in extreme danger, and probably he made a bracha. Is a raya, says the HaRav, that you make a bracha on a ness, on a hatzalah, if you were in danger, even if you were saved b'derech hateva. That's the HaRav. And there's two major kashas on this HaRav. Kasha number one, Achronim ask, why did the HaRav bring a Medrash Rabbo, Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, that Yosef went to the boir, and then he says, probably he made a bracha shas nes b'mokim hazeh. HaRav knew a lot more than I know. On the same pasuk where Rabbi Yitzchak says in the Medrash Rabbo they went to the boir, the Medrash Tanchuma says explicitly that Yosef went to the boir and he made a bracha shas nes b'mokim hazeh. So why do you need to bring a Medrash Rabbo v'shem Rabbi Yitzchak and then say that probably you made a bracha? Maybe yeah, maybe nicht. So bring them before us, Medrash Tanchuma. Kasha number one. Kasha number two. Rashi says, so if you're thrown into a boir with Nechoshim Ba'akravim, that's a death sentence. So if a Kadosh saved him from Nechoshim Ba'akravim, that's already a miracle in its own right. He was saved with Derech Nes. So what's the whole raya of the HaRav? That he's making a bracha because he was saved from hunger and thirst. There was a nest, Two big kashas on HaRav. The teretz is Meir. I was omen this in the schus of the tzibur for today's shir, Be'ez Hashem. Teretz is Zeya Poshet. In Chazal we find different reasons, different perushim in the pasuk va'boy reik ein boy mayim. In the Gemara in Shabbos, says the Gemara, Omar Reb Tanchum. Reb Tanchum says, va'boy reik ein boy mayim, aval nechoshem ba'akravim yesh boy. Rashi al Torah brings down aval nechoshem ba'akravim yesh boy. But the quote is a quote from the Gemara, Omar Reb Tanchum. Says the Meshech Chochma, Reb Tanchum in the Medrash Tanchuma says that Yosef went off the way to go to the boir to say the bracha. Says the Meshech Chochma, you know why? That's Reb Tanchum l'shetosai. Because Reb Tanchum says in the Gemara, Av nechoshem ba'akravim yeshbo. Geschmack shtikl Torah. And the HaRav also knew that shtikl Torah. Says the HaRav, But not everyone agrees to Reb Tanchum in the Gemara, Avon Nachashim Vakravim Yeshboy. Nevertheless, you have a Medrash Rabbah which says that Yosef HaTzadik went to the boy. Says the Chai Adam, L'ch'oyer Reb Yitzchak meant, like the Medrash Tanchuma, that he went to the boy to say the bracha Shas V'Mokim Hazeh. But it's not Reb Tanchum speaking in the Medrash Tanchuma. It's Reb Yitzchak. And I have no reason to say that Reb Yitzchak agrees to the drasha of Reb Tanchum, who says, Nachashim Vakravim Yeshboy. Says the Chai Adam, Chodem Uturetzis B'Chavarta. I have no raya from the Medrash Tanchuma because of Nachashim Vakravim Yeshboy. But the Medrash Rabbah says, Omer Reb Yitzchak, that he went to the boil, and the Chayre means to make a bracha, Shasanis V'Mokim Hazeh. But the Medrash Rabbah holds there was nothing more dangerous than hunger and thirst. It's a raya to my shit that says Chai Adam, Shkoyach, that you make a bracha even when you were saved, when the actual saving wasn't in a miraculous way, but you were saved from a miraculous danger. That's the shitta of the Chai Adam. Let's move on, Rabbi Isa. Gets more interesting, Rabbi Isa. In Tshuvas Maharitats, in Simon Pei Zayin, Maharitats or Yom Tov Tzalon, he lived a long time ago. He was alive in the time of the Beis Yosef. He was Michachmei Tzfas, and he lived in the generation after the Beis Yosef. And he has a shaila over there. The person had a nest. Does he need to go all the way to the place where the nest happened? Or is it good enough to stand in the distance, see the place, and make a bracha? Can he make a bracha or not? Says Maritats, Araya. Because Yosef HaTzadik is going along the road. If you're going along the road and you see a boyer in the distance, and under your breath you mutter a bracha, Shasanes V'Mokim Hazeh, is there any reason that your brothers need to get concerned, that you're very angry with them, they don't even know you made a bracha? If the brothers got all angry, or all upset, all worried, that tells us, like it says in the Medrash, that Yosef had to leave the highway, go all the way to the boyer, look inside the boyer, and make his bracha. Why do you need to do that? It says Maritats Mikan Raya that you can only make a bracha she'asur ines b'mokim hazeh if you're actually standing at that place. Even though the Rosh is a roya mokim shenasa boy nisim, it's not good enough to be a roya. You need to stand there and see it, but you got to stand there. That's Maritats. Now, Achroinim, Choylek on him. Prioritz is Choylek on him. Other Achroinim. Big shmooze around this Maritats. Do you need to actually stand there or not? Now, there's an aura. L'choira, if you understand, like the Meshech Chochmah, like the Mishnah Brura, that the nest wasn't the boyer at all. Because you're not making a bracha on that. Because that was Hatzolah, Shloik, that Kederach HaTeva. Where's the nest? At the bottom of the boyer, and then the Choshev HaKravim. So if you're going along the highway, and you can see that there's a boyer, but you can't see the bottom of the boyer, and the Choshev HaKravim, there's not half a minute to make a bracha. So how could the Maritats bring a raya? Yosef makes a bracha. He could have made the bracha on the side of on the highway. Elamai, you got to go there. If you understood that you're making a bracha on the Choshev HaKravim, he has no raya at all. Teretzis. Maritats understood like the Chai Adam. That the Medrash which says that he made a bracha, Omer Reb Yitzchak, that he went off the way to make a bracha, is on the mere fact that there's a boil. And the boil is a place where people die, in a boil. Says the Maritats, you're going along the highway, you can see. So why didn't you make a bracha? Elamai, that you got to go and stand there. Because he understands like the Chai Adam, that the bracha was on the Hatzolah. And if the bracha was on that tzala, then that tzala is that you went in the boil. Or you could have made the bracha on the highway. Now, my Rabbi say, why does the Meir Tats hold like this? Because he holds that you're making a bracha, a hoidah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you're going to go to the place where you were saved and make the bracha. The Pri Haaretz and those are chaylik on him, they hold that the bracha is on the Gevuras Hashem. You appreciate, you admire HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Gevuras, which is the Emes HaMaloich Al Haaretz Kavodah. But you can only make the bracha if you can see the place which reminds you of the Gevuras of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So according to them, you can stand on the highway and make the bracha. Meir Tats l'shetosoi, who says you got to stand there on the place of the nest. Why do you have to stand on the place of the nest? Because you're saying, oh, you daughter HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you're saying your daughter HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then he can afford to learn that the nest that happened over here was the mere fact he was in the boil. So l'shetosoi, he has a kasha. Why do you need to go to the boil? You could have stood on the highway and made the bracha. And the Meir says, Meir Tats l'shetosoi, that the reason why he went to the boil is because you got to go and stand there. Those who hold you can make the bracha on the highway, they hold that when you stand on the highway, you see a boil, that's anyway not a reason. Because the boil is not a reason to make the bracha. What do you make the bracha on the Nechashim Bakravim at the bottom? If you make a bracha on the Nechashim Bakravim, then you got to be there by the Nechashim Bakravim. Now we move on and we see Dvarim befloim b'yosef. In Gemara states, HaRav mokim shenasa boines. You had a nace on a highway. You come back there a year later, more than 30 days later. There's no trace of what happened. Nevertheless, you see the place, you make a bracha. That's muskim l'chalades. Everyone agrees. Person had a nest, an operation. You come back there, you can see nothing at all of, no remnants of what happened. You're going to make a bracha. At the same time, it says in the Gemara, another din. HaRav mokim, where there was a nest to Klal Yisrael, like Nachal Arnoin, two great big cliffs, and the valley in the middle, and the two of them moved and joined and destroyed all the Canaanim there. You make a bracha, Shasa Nisna V'Seinu B'Mokim Hazeh. V'chein, says the Gemara, if you see the Evan, which Oig Melech HaBoshem wanted to throw on Klal Yisrael, you got to make a bracha. Shasa Nisna V'Seinu B'Mokim Hazeh. Why did it? As I state in Gemara, Zogt Tosfos in Brachas Nun Daled Amud Beis. Amar the Gechidish, Shem Rabbeinu Tam, that these two brachas are different. The ness of a personal ness, it's irrelevant whether it's nikah or not nikah mitoich hamokim. You can notice it, you can recognize it, you can see it's irrelevant. You saw the place, you make a bracha. But nisim, which happened to the entire Klal Yisrael, it needs to be, says Rabbeinu Tam, shemitoich hamokim nikir hametz. There's something which reminds you of the nest here. You see the Evan, and you see that this Evan could kill Klal Yisrael. You see Nachal Arnoin, you make a bracha. Abba says, Rabbeinu Tam, if a nest happened to Klal Yisrael, but there's no zeicher at all of anything at all, you can't see any zeicher at all, and I happen to know that at this point there was a nest, says Tosfos that you can't make a bracha. Ad kan shitza Tosfos. V'lo yisbira Tosfos. Why? So we would like to suggest, where the Achronim explain in Tosfos, a geschmack pshat, a lomdish pshat in Tosfos. Sumosim it maybe a pshat, a different pshat. But in lomdish, Achronim say as follows. What's the difference between the two brachas? The answer is as follows. A nest that happened to me, to my father, I've got to say a birchas haidah. I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But I don't thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu every day in Shemona Esrei for that nest. If I go to the place where the nest took place, then I have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that miracle. It's a haidah. The place is only a place that I should be able to make a bracha of a hoidah. Whether the place you can notice or not notice is irrelevant. I know I had a ness over here. I know I need to say thank you. Masha'inkin says Tosfos, a ness which happened against Klal Yisrael. My Elta Zayda 3,000 years ago, Klal Yisrael had a ness. You're not saying thank you for it. You don't feel a thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that ness. So why are you making a bracha? Because when you go to that place and you see the Evan, which Oig wanted to throw on Klal Yisrael, you come to a new realization in the Gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says Tosfos, if you're making a birchas hashvach on the Gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you need to make a place where the Gvura is apparent. If the Gvura is apparent, then you make a bracha. Gewaltig. Nifla moed. Now, who can say this pshat in Tosfos? If you hold like the Chai Adam, that the bracha that I make on a nest that happened to me is even if there's no Gvuras of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the mere fact that I was saved, it's a birchas haidah. Says Tosfos, the birchas haidah doesn't need that it's apparent from the place. But the bracha that Klal Yisrael is making for this and for Klal Yisrael, it's got to be apparent. But what about the Mishnah Berurah? Mishnah Berurah holds you need that there should be a miracle in the way you were saved. So a yochid, what's he making his bracha on? He's making his bracha on the Gvuras Hashem. And nevertheless the din is that if it's not noticeable in the place, you still make a bracha on the Gvuras Hashem. So why should it be different when it comes to a nest that happened against Klal Yisrael? Both of them are bracha on the Gvuras Hashem. And lo and behold, you open up Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah says, Kosav Magen Avraham b'Shem Tosfos, that the bracha that Klal Yisrael makes on a nest that happened to Klal Yisrael needs to be nikah mitoich hamokim, says the Shara Tziyim, but the Rishonim don't say this, and I don't understand this, and I have a raya from the Gemara against this, and I don't like this psak of Tosfos. Halacha l'maisa, a yid has to ask a Rav. But the Mishnah Berurah holds very stark, not like Tosfos. Why? Because the same Mishnah Berurah holds that you need a nest for an individual which announces Gevuras Hashem, and nevertheless it doesn't need to be Nikah Mitoich HaMakim. So there's no reason, says the Mishnah Berurah, that the nest that happened to Klal Yisrael should be any different. But the Chai Adam does bring down Tosfos. Because Chai Adam holds that the nest of an individual will make a bracha as long as you were in danger. It's a birchas haidah. Says the Chai Adam, like Tosfos, the bracha of the rabbin of Klal Yisrael, that's a birchas Gevuras Hashem. It needs to be nikim metoich hamokim. Sehr geschmack. Interessant. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't bring down Tosfos. That's one of the rayas of the Achronim, l'chayra, that the Shulchan Aruch didn't pass like Tosfos. And he holds there's no difference whether it's nikim metoich hamokim or not. Comes in a Tzvi, in Meir Mesada, and he says that the Shulchan Aruch did bring down this thing. Meduik in Shulchan Aruch. Why? In Shulchan Aruch, and Simon Reish Ches, in Sif Aleph and Sif Daled, he brings down the dinim. Haroy Mokim Shenasu Nisam Yisrael is in Sif Aleph. In Sif Daled, Haroy Mokim Shenasu Nis to himself makes a bracha, the same bracha. Here's a bracha Shenasu Nisam Aviseinu. Here's a bracha Shenasu Nisam Mokim Hazeh. Says the Netziv, there's one word difference. In Sif Aleph it says, Haroy Mokim Shenasu Boy Nisam Yisrael. Nasu boy. In Sif Daled, when it says about your own ness, Haroya Mokim, Shanasa Nes. But it doesn't say boy. It says the Netziv, why? Because Sif Daled is happened a nest to me. It doesn't need to be Nika. It's not Nasa boy. In this place you can see. Sif Aleph says the Shulchan Aruch, one extra word. Haroya Mokim Shanasu boy Nisim Yisrael. In this place, because this place announces, is suggestive of the nest that took place here, then you got to make a bracha, like the psak of Tosfos and the Chai Adam and the Magen Avraham. The Loike Mishnah Berurah. That's the Netziv. So far, niflamoid. Now comes Meir Rabbi Say, the cream at the top of the pie. Halacha l'maisa, the poskim tell us that a nesa happened to Klal Yisrael, it's got to be nikim and toich hamokim. Kadas ha'taisus. A nesa happened to me individually, you can see nothing at all, you make a bracha. Now, my own mother, so sie sein gesund und stark, hat mehr als schon ein gesund, is a survivor of Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. And she was liberated near Theresienstadt. What happens if she goes back to Bergen-Belsen? And today, there's nothing more than a field there in Bergen-Belsen. Not a clue of what took place over there. You can see nothing at all. Does she make a bracha? Avada? Haroya mokim shenasa nes to himself, makes a bracha. No shaila. What is the shaila? It says in Shulchan Aruch Hashem the Yerushalmi, not only the individual makes a bracha, Bonov, ubnei Bonov, also make a bracha, she'asa nes le'imi b'mokim hazeh. And Meir Rabbi Say, I tell you a shaila happened to me personally. I was zoicha to go with a group of cousins, and we went to daven in the place where our parents were liberated. And you can see no clue of the nisim that took place there. V'nisheles hashayla, there's a din for a yochid who had a nes, that it doesn't need to be nikim mitoich hamokim. Tosfos says a nes which happened to Klal Yisrael, it needs to be nikim mitoich hamokim. What about the din that a yochid, his children and his grandchildren make a bracha in the mokim shenas nes le'imi? Does it need to be apparent in the place or not? Sheina Shaila Rabbi Say was neged to me alach l'maisa. So we went and we looked, searched high and low. The Shulchan Aruch HaRav, besides writing the Shulchan Aruch HaRav, I'll say that Shulchan Aruch, he also wrote Hilchos Birchas Hanenin. In his Hilchos Birchas Hanenin, he writes that the bracha of She'asli Nes, for the individual person, even if it's not nikkur at all. But if you're making a bracha on a nes that happened to your father, or your grandfather, or a nes that happened to an entire Klal Yisrael, then it needs to be nikkur mitoich hamokim. Says the Shulchan Aruch HaRav, if I go back to Bergen-Belsen, no bracha at all. Abba, the Chaye Adam, that we learned before, told his daughter who had a nes, and it doesn't look like there was anything noticeable in the place where the nes happened. He told his daughter if she comes back here after 30 days, she has to make a bracha, her and her children and her grandchildren. Where do I see more who's chaylik on the Shulchan Aruch HaRav? The Tzvi and Meir Misada. Because it says in Shulchan Aruch in Siv Daled, Haroya mokim shenas nes, to himself, or his father, or his grandfather, makes a bracha. And in Siv Daled, it doesn't say boy. It says in the Tzvi, why do you miss out the word boy? Because it doesn't need to be nikah. So the Tzvi holds that the individual and his children and his grandchildren make a bracha even though it's not nikah. But a nes for Klal Yisrael, it needs to be nikah. What's the pshat in the shitta of the Tzvi and the Chaye Adam? Heinin advarim asher amarnu. The bracha that you make for yourself, or your children, or your grandchildren, that's a birchas haidah. You're saying thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, saving me, saving my father, my grandfather. Birchas haidah doesn't need to be nikah mitoich hamokim. If you're saying a bracha, you're admiring Gvuras Hashem, that He saved Klal Yisrael. You need Gvuras Hashem. If you need Gvuras Hashem, then says Rabbeinu Tam, it needs to be nikah mitoich hamokim. What's the pshat in the Shulchan Aruch HaRav? Shulchan Aruch HaRav holds that only the individual makes a bracha when it's not nikkur mitoich hamokim. But his children and his grandchildren and the nes of Klal Yisrael, that you make a bracha only if it's nikkur mitoich hamokim. What's the pshat? Pshat's as follows. He has a completely different Havana. He understands as follows. La'olam, you only make a bracha when you feel emotional about it, when you're inspired. What inspires me to make a nes, to make a bracha for nes happened to Klal Yisrael? What inspires me to contemplate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done over here? If I see the Evan, which Oig wanted to throw, or if I see the Nachal Arnoin, I'm inspired. The same says the Shulchan Aruch HaRav. If I see a place where there were nisim for my mother or my grandfather, that doesn't inspire me. If I see a concentration camp and I see a furnace, that's nikum mitoich hamokim, that they were saved. That inspires you to make a bracha. But the individual person himself, he goes back to the place where he experienced the nes. He's going to be inspired there if he sees nothing at all. So he's going to make a bracha. That's the shitta of the Shulchan Aruch HaRav. That's the difference between the Yochid himself and everybody else. And that's l'chayra how the Mishnah Berurah must have understood shittas HaTosfos. But according to the Tzvi and the Chayei Adam, Tosfos is saying along this, there's a difference between a birchas Eidah and a birchas Hashvach. There's kamo v'kamo other nafkiminas that come out from the discussion that we had over here. Unfortunately, no time to be married on this now. One point I just want to mention, because I didn't say correctly before, I said that it's muskim l'chol hadeis, that if you go back to Bergen-Belsen, there's nothing more than a field there that you're going to make a bracha she'asa li neis v'mokim hazeh to the individual himself. The Maisim B'Tzeila Chochma, he says an Santa Chiddush, his own Chiddush, and he says the way he understands, according to the Avon of the Shulchan Aruch HaRav, that you need to be inspired. So he says, if the mokim still exists, even though you not nicker mitoch the mokim, that you can still make a bracha. But he holds that even the individual himself, if you come back and the place is completely transformed from a concentration camp into an empty field, then he holds that even an individual won't make a bracha on such a place. Maybe should help him.
Before you give the bracha, I want to follow up, if you don't mind, on two issues. So first of all, similar to the Rav, I had the same question when I went back to Auschwitz for the first time. My mother was Aleh Shalom, yours was in the tale of Auschwitz. So Auschwitz, as unlike Bergen-Belsen, has a very extensive physical metzias. In fact, as you probably all know, they turned it into something which more than it shouldn't have been, but there certainly is enough there. And all sorts of shilas. I also mentioned the Spitzer Chachma before the Rav came on. There, l'chayra, there's certainly a place which is kayam, so it would be qualified under, the way you explained, it would qualify under both a nest that was nasal Klal Yisrael, because any yachid that was nitzail is a chelik of a nest that was nasal Klal Yisrael. So is the physical plant that is kaim in Auschwitz still enough? Where exactly was the Hatzalah? It starts getting complicated because what's there, she was in the work camp that was attached to Auschwitz, didn't know exactly what to do, and therefore made a bracha without a Shem Malchus. But according to Rav's explanation, such a Metzius l'chayr, there's no Shaila. Qualifies under both. Qualifies under a nest that was not done to Klal Yisrael, and it qualifies under an individual nest with a makam that was there, exactly where the makam is. I mean, does it have to be within Daled Amos and stuff or not? You have to be in Auschwitz, l'chayr, right? Am I wrong?
No, I would agree with you. You see, it's, unless you hold the Maritats hold, you've got to be literally within Daled Amos. But the whole place was a place of Nisim.
The whole place, you're within Daled Amos. Where was her Hatzalah? In Auschwitz, with different Daled Amos of Auschwitz. You stood on the railroad tracks, so L'chayr were there. Second Shaila, and again, I don't want to, I'm not going to ask you to Shaila Patzka, Shaila Vachlamais, but I raised the following question with the Eilim, and I wonder what you think. I was driving on the West Side Highway, and in the winter, in the car, with children in the car. and the car spun around on a 3-lane highway, skidded, and normally there would be cars in the next lane and the lane after, and you'd spin around and you'd be coming into ongoing traffic. So I went to ask a shayla. There was a shayla with a goimel, a separate question. We didn't hit anything. In my heart, I knew the fact that there were no cars going there, by Meir das, but in effect, I would say that's a nes. Is this a nes for their chateva? Does this qualify for a bracha d'Hashem malchus? And my children were in the car. Are they making a bracha al sparach shasali avi, or do they have to actually make a bracha every time we pass this place? Of course, it's not nicker, or to be a bracha biyachid. Was paskentir?
Mit darf trachten, we darf gehen senden Platz zu sehen, wie viel von Nessidus, that there's no cars in the other lane.
It's a mitzias shaila of how what qualifies for a nes, how much a teva and how much a nes whether it is. That's the question.
Ich will etwas zulegen mit Beschuscha.
Yeah.
I'm sure your mother was a very special lady,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure she had many zchusim. Reb Chaim Volozhin they write B'Shem Reb Chaim Volozhin that he went to the bridge next to Slutsk, where the Vilna Gaon's mother had a nest when she was a little girl, and he made a bracha there. And the story says that Reb Chaim Volozhin said that the Gaon's mother was in terrible danger, and she was saved in the zechus that the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to bring a Vilna Gaon to come from her, and that zechus she was saved from vadai death. Meir Rabbeisai, the Rebbeinu Shalom hat gemacht Nissim, and the Rebbeinu Shalom there in Auschwitz knew that wird wachsen von da, Yedideinu Reb Shlomo, with his zechusim, what he does for each and every one of us. Eben help weiter, keep up the good work.
Okay, Shekayach, thank you for the compliment, which I'll take it on behalf of my mother, Leah Shalom, and not behalf of myself. But this is the Shaila, this is a Metzia Shaila. But when it goes to Auschwitz, where there's a physical plant, you're saying the guys with Bergen-Belsen, there's much nothing there. So this is the Shaila already on the.
That's what he says, yeah. Say that, B'shuschem, HaRav.